It is time for Off the Track, and our special guest today is Mr. David Ellis. David, thank you very much. And looking at your past, you've got a busy time. Thanks for giving up a couple of hours for us.
It's a pleasure, Steve.
Did I ask you, are you a racing man who dabbles in farming, or you're a farmer that dabbles in horses?
Well, initially I was a farmer.
Yeah.
And then our bloodstock business got so big that we managed to do both at the same time, but we're lucky that we've got really good staff that
allowed you to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take me back, because we do this with everybody. Where did your interest in racing come from? I mean, did it develop yourself, or like a lot of people, does it come from the family?
Well, when I was 17, a friend of mine, Dave Shorter, and I, we had a girlfriend each, and we didn't know what to do with them this particular Saturday. So we decided,
which is unusual for you.
In 1970, we decided that we'd take them to the Ellis races. So we dressed up in a suit and tie, and we went to the hill. And we had a marvellous day. I still remember this day like it was yesterday. A horse called Evenstead won the Easter Handicap. Was ridden by, I think, Gary Alexander. It was trained by Gary Phillips. Paid $48.
You didn't back it, did you?
No, I didn't back that, but I backed another winner. I think it was race 5, a horse called Michael Thomas. It was trained by Merv Ritchie. It was ridden by Bill Skelton and paid $30 and $5 for a place. I had $2 each way, and I thought, this is the easiest way to earn a living that I've ever come across. And I was hooked from that day. And I can also tell you that the two girls, two St Cuthbert's College girls that we took, they had a fantastic day too, and they wanted to go back to the races, so it was a success all round.
Now, I just got to know this. I don't know which question to ask first. Did you take them back the second time, the girls? Or take a different girl?
No, we took the girls back quite a few times to Ellis races, and but in those days we couldn't get in the members stand. You just couldn't get in. So we went on the hill, and you used to order a jug of beer and watch the horses from there, and it was pretty full even on the small days.
Yeah, it was. Those were the days. I mean, I mentioned this before. I found an article in the Herald saying the locals were upset about the cars parking out the front of their properties there in Green Lane and Ellerslie at that stage.
Yeah.
How things have changed. With schooling, so where were you? I mean, in a nice area of Auckland?
We were brought up in Pakuranga.
All right.
I went to the Howick Pony Club.
How were you?
Average, just average at riding. Wasn't really gifted, but enjoyed it. And from our home to the Howick Pony Club was 2.5 miles, and I rode past 2 houses. So it was all farmland in those days. So now it's all built up. Your
parents were farmers? You're a farming background? No,
I'm the only farmer, and I'm the only person in our family that's interested in racing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you grew up with brothers?
Yeah, I've got 2 brothers and a sister. And they both went to Pony Club, but none of them are interested in racing or farming.
Okay, so we've come through. You went to college? Whereabouts?
I went to King's College in Auckland. Started at boarding school at the age of 9. And just loved school.
Pleased to get rid of you?
Probably.
So, I mean, that's one of the things about life, and one of the things about private schools. The contacts you made then, I dare say, at King's College in particular, knowing the history of the place, are still with you today. Oh,
yes, I had fantastic friends at school. I really enjoyed school. Enjoyed playing rugby, cricket, swimming, and I represented the school at 4 sports. Swimming, rowing, rugby and cricket. And I've got some marvellous friends that race horses with me today, and we started school at the age of 5 together.
Going through King's, any idea at that stage of what did you want to do for a job? You know, we're looking to be a stockbroker or things like that. No doubt some of your friends went on to be that. I mean, were you looking that way?
Well, I had a friend at boarding school whose family had a farm on the Karaka. And I used to go out there for a leave Sunday or in the school holidays, and we used to drive a little motorbike round and muster the sheep. And I just loved animals and loved the farming life. And very early on in life I decided that I was going to go farming, and I wanted to make a success of that before I got into racing.
Yeah.
And
So in the background, even back then, you thought, I can see racing part of my future.
yeah, I'm very lucky that I decided what I wanted to do very early in life, and yeah.
Living the dream, as they say.
Yes, that's right.
So what was your first job out of school?
My first job out of school, I was only allowed to leave school on the basis that I went to Flockhouse, an agricultural school in Bulls.
Yeah.
The principal there was J.J. Stewart. Every Friday night I'd be summoned to his office and asked what was going to win the next day.
So you down the back of the class with the best bets?
Correct.
Turf Digest down there way, of course. Yeah.
Yep. And I used to bet then seriously on every Saturday morning. Often J.J. Stewart would take me to the races, give me $5, and I'd bet for him. And it was a marvellous first year out of school. And then I went and became a shepherd and worked on farms, 2 different farms for a couple of years, one at Port Waikato, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then you made a decision, like I did. You went to Massey University down in Palmerston North.
Yes, I did the diploma degree in agriculture.
You got the white gumboots?
No.
Oh, come on, they all had white gumboots.
Got the diploma degree, and to do that, you had to have 3 years practical experience on a farm. And I enjoyed that and learned a lot too about farming, about genetics, and it was very good experience for later on.
So we're talking now, what, late 70s, something like that, are we?
Early 70s.
Early 70s?
Yep, 1973, 74, in that area.
So you then, I understand, thought I need to get some money if I'm going to buy a farm.
Correct.
Started
when
working.
I left university, I had a big overdraft, and I thought this is just hopeless.
Yeah.
So I knew how much money I'd have to get a deposit for a small farm, and I went and worked in the freezing works. Started at 4 o'clock in the morning, finished at 3:30 in the afternoon. Had another job painting houses every afternoon and Saturdays, and on a Sunday I poured petrol. And
7 days a week.
Yep. And
were you married at this stage, or?
No, I was single.
Single.
And I worked literally every day, and I finished up with $40,000.
After how long?
After 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. Remember, it was hard to save in those days because you used to have to pay 66 cents in the dollar tax. So to save money, it was quite difficult.
Yeah, well, you must have been earning, right? But you're a single man at that stage, of course, makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So you came out and you bought your first farm?
Yes. I went to the Waimai Valley and just out next door to Te Akau, and bought 500 acres for $215,000.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound much, but in the 1970s it was a lot of money. Yeah. And I had a huge first mortgage and a big second mortgage, and it was a pretty rundown farm.
But with your work ethic, I dare say you're going to turn it around.
Yeah, we turned it around, and we got $6 a kilo for our wool. Last year we got $2.50, so you can see that we had a couple of pretty good years.
So you started as a sheep farmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate sheep. Got to be honest, I don't like them. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that when they go out the gate now at $150 a lamb, you soon learn to like them.
So you're there. When did you get your first horse?
In 1977, I raced a filly called Magnum with the late Bill Ford, and we raced her together, and she won my first ever race in 1978 at the Pyro Racecourse, and she was ridden by Ron Taylor.
Ron Taylor, Polo Prince man.
Yeah.
He's been a guest here on a Monday too, all right.
Yeah, and I enjoyed his program.
Yeah, no, but it was great. So you had your first one. Was that the first horse you raced?
Yes.
Gee whiz, you've had a run of first.
Yeah, she won at Pyro, and then the following season she won at Ellis. So it was the huge thrill to win. And I can tell you that in 1979, when she won at Ellis, it was a South Auckland on-course only meeting, and the club that day turned over $1 million on course.
Our guest here on Off the Track is Mr. David Ellis. We've learnt in the first part of his life he's been very successful. First time with the races, successful. First time with a racehorse, successful. You bought your first farm. Moving into the 80s, things are starting to develop because you went and bought a second farm. 81, wasn't it?
Yeah, I bought the property that is now Te Akau Stud, remortgaged my first farm and developed Te Akau Stud, which was a rundown sheep and cattle farm, and developed it into horse fencing, and so that we could run horses. And
so the passion for horses is starting to bubble to the surface.
Yeah, well, I thought that racing was my hobby, it was my passion, it was what I wanted to do, and I thought, let's set it up so that I can make it a paying business. And before I knew where I was, I had a huge adjustment farm, up to 200 horses were adjusting there, over 100 brood mares. We had a big breaking in business. We used to pre-train 25 horses a day there. It was huge, and was quite lucky that as that was climbing rapidly, so were interest rates. And at one stage I was paying 23% interest on my first mortgage. And I was very fortunate that without racing and farming then going in the doldrums, that I had such a good racing business.
The balance worked well. You're married at this stage?
Yes.
Yeah. Children?
Yes, I have. My first wife and I have 3 children: Joanna, Sarah, and Davey.
Were they interested in horses at that stage, or themselves? Were they farming? Because you're living out the back of the beyond.
Well, they had to go to boarding school in Auckland, but in all the holidays they rode the pre-trainers for us. All 3 of them were good riders. My son works for us in Matamata and specialises in breaking in. He's a very good horse breaker. He broke in the likes of King's Chapel, Darcy Brahma, Marufati, Distinctly Secret, those sort of horses. And he's very good with the development of young horses.
Yeah. Hey, listen, one thing I did find out, and I always say that I always learn something. I've learned something as I researched today, David. You went to your first national, I don't know whether it was your first national sale, but you went down to Trentham in 1981 and bought a yearling. In 1981?
I first went to Trentham in 1977, and I went back every year there. But the first year that I bought my first horse was 1981, and I bought at the premier sale ever since. The first horse I bought, I paid $65,000 for a Sovereign Edition filly.
King of Graora.
Yeah, and she was no good on the track. In fact, my trainer then was Bill Ford, and he said, "You bought one of the slowest horses I've ever trained." So even though she wasn't actually 2 years of age, I sent her to the stud, and I got her served by Zamazan. And
that's Keith Burley.
Yeah.
Okay, and what happened to her?
Well, the family got very successful in the next 6 months, and I sold that mare to Sir Patrick Hogan, and I got $200,000 cash and a free service to Sir Tristram.
That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah. And
you paid 65 for a yearling, no good, put it in Folders Amazon, who was a leading sire. You end up getting 200 cash and a nomination to Sir Tristram.
Yeah. And then I had a public company that came to me and said they were desperate. They had just bought a mare that had won the Golden Slipper.
Was that the age of Raora and ABS and all those sort of companies?
Corporation.
Troy Corporation, was that era? Yeah.
And Troy Corporation said that we've just bought this mare that's won the Golden Slipper, a mare called Century Miss.
Yes.
She was trained by Bart Cummings, and they were desperate for a nomination to Sir Tristram. And Sir Patrick said that the horse was absolutely fully booked, but the only way that he knew they could get there was he knew a young farmer at Te Akau that had a free service to the horse, and they could negotiate with me. So the horse was standing, Sir Tristram was standing at $100,000, and I told them I wanted $300,000 for the service, and they came back and they gave me so much cash, so many shares in Troy Corporation, and then I worried whether the company was going to be successful or not, and whether the mare was going to get in foal. But Century Miss, she had 8 foals in a row.
God bless her.
So I never had to worry really in hindsight. And I sold the shares in the company and used the money to reduce a very big mortgage.
So your $65,000 yearling purchase turned into 200 cash plus, what roughly?
260,000 I got.
260 plus the 200. That's 460. Is
Yes,
that right?
that's right.
460.
Yes.
Gee whiz, that's not bad business. But isn't that what the industry's about? That's how it can happen. And in a minute 12, a family can go from being less commercial to all of a sudden being hot.
Yep.
And that happens.
That's right.
Especially at that era,
That's
around
right.
through the 80s with the public companies.
Yeah. No, it was.
In the early 80s, you're setting up, as you say, is that when you joined up with Stephen Ortridge? About then?
Well, Steve first came to work for me and ran my pre-training farm.
Out at the farm?
In 1987. Yep. He used to live in our house with us. He was single, and we had a lot of fun together. Because
there was another name that came up, Sam Boyd. He joined you then too. Because what I hope that people realise now is that a lot of people have been with you a long time. Sam Boyd was one of those first guys that joined.
Yes, Sam first started working for me in 1981, over 30 years ago, and he's raced some pretty good horses with us, King's Chapel, Marufati, and quite a few others, and we're a great team, and we love having him and he's really become part of the family.
Yeah. You went back to the sales at Karaka, not Karaka, at Trentham. I didn't realise until I looked at the figures. That last year at Trentham, which was I think 85 or something like that, wasn't it? 85, 86?
1987, the last year.
87, yeah, that's right, 87. You spent really $2 million.
Yeah, I put quite a few partnerships together. At that stage, I was really interested in buying some good fillies. Yeah. And I realised that I couldn't do it on my own as a farmer, so I approached a lot of business people in Auckland and around New Zealand, and that was the first year that I bought a filly, a yearling, from Pencaro Stud, and I bought Sarah Fay, who is a very good mare filly. She ran 5th in the Derby, 3rd in the Oaks. And then I gave it to Bart Cummings to train, and she broke the track record at Randwick and won the Craven Stakes.
See, that's what I love about people. They remember all the intricate details. Before then, though, you had your first Group 1 winner with a filly that you actually didn't buy as a yearling, a filly called Cosmetique.
Yeah, do you remember her?
Yeah, I do. Bill Ford had her, didn't he?
Yes,
Trained her. Yeah.
Bill Ford trained her, and as a 3-year-old, she was hopelessly out of form. And she was Altitude's family.
Yeah, and so that's when you went and purchased her?
Yeah.
More to be a broodmare, I should suggest.
No, I thought that her form would improve.
Yeah.
And she actually won her first start for me at Ruakaka. Peter Johnson rode her, and it was the last leg of a jackpot.
Yeah.
And
you being a punting man?
No, I didn't back her, but she was a hot favourite. But Peter Johnson, he rode her, and I think he got a pretty big sling from a punter because that person won the jackpot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he wouldn't be opposed to that, Peter.
No, that's right.
She went on and won your first Group 1, the Easter. Is that right?
Yes, she won the Easter Handicap in 1986. She beat Waverley Star by the shortest nose you've ever seen. Waverley Star was probably a little bit unlucky, and he won the following Saturday by 7 or 8 lengths. And but Cosmetique paid $26, and it was just a huge thrill. And I remember Keith Hobb telling me through the commentary box and signalling to me that he thought Cosmetique had just won, and it was a huge thrill. Yeah.
Off the track with David Ellis, and David, we're at 1987. My memory of 87, and this is what I love about you, David, is that when most people are looking to constrain, put up the battens, put up the defences, we had the 87 was the crash, the financial crash. You went out and spent $2 million on horses already at Trentham because that was earlier in the year. You went and added another 300 acres to your portfolio of acreage from 1,000 acres to 1,300, I think. You had Stephen Ortridge working for you, pre-training. You then went and set up with a training establishment and brought in Roger James.
Yeah, I bought a 20-acre property in Matamata that was actually owned by Bruce Compton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marina Roundtree and that.
Yeah.
So that subsequently went to Australia,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
And all went well to start with. I mean, what was it like 87? I mean, obviously you went through the crash with everybody else. I mean, at a time when you were looking to expand, everybody else is sort of saying, geez, what's happening to the world?
Well, actually, I was in the share market, Steve, and I've got two brothers that are both share brokers, and we were buying and selling shares in quite a big way in the 1980s, and we actually made enough money, and in 1986 I said that I'm out.
No.
And I bought Cosmetique with the money, and I bought the Matamata property with the money that we'd made out of the share market. So
You listened to Rob Muldoon, because Rob Muldoon was saying at the time, this is overheated, this has got to stop. Yeah?
Well, I can tell you he was one bloke I didn't listen to.
Is that right?
But I was lucky, I was fortunate. It was more because I wanted to get involved more in racing, and I wanted to have my own training establishment in Matamata. I felt at the time that, like today, there's a lot of very, very good trainers in New Zealand, and I wanted to compete, and I wanted to try and do things my way, and yeah, it's lucky it's been successful.
Well, I think a lot of that success too is because of the people you got around you. Stephen Ortridge obviously doing the pre-training and out that side of it. You get Roger James, who we know has developed into one of the country's best.
Yes.
At his job. A little bit later on, you employed a young bloke out of school, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was unloading horses one day at Te Akau, and Mark Walker walked up the driveway and asked me for a job. And I said, look, I'm sorry, at the moment I haven't got any spare positions. He gave me his CV, and he said, when you've read this CV, you'll have a job for me. So
Yeah.
that night, over a cold beer, I read his CV, and I thought, this guy has got something. He's pretty smart person. He had just finished school.
Okay.
He had a bursary at school to go to university. He was intelligent, and I thought I'd give him a job, so I said, I'll give you 3 months trial, and we've worked together ever since. And
Best
that
3
was,
months trial you ever gave. Best decision, apart from getting out of the share market in '86, the best decision you ever made, you reckon?
probably
One of them,
Yep,
one of them.
definitely.
Yeah, as it turned out.
The best business decision I've made, the best decision I've ever made in my life was marrying Karen.
We'll come to that. Don't get ahead of ourselves, because she's ours, you know. And I mean, one of these things, she is the daughter of the star of this TV, and I dare say, we might as well bring it up now. There are people out there that watch this TV, watch First Call, and some of the older people that watch it, she's like their daughter, you know. She has that but there's a lot of pressure on you, you know, to do things right by her.
Well, she puts a tremendous amount of time into researching for her program, and it's great to go to the races and you see so many people that come up and tell her how much they enjoy having her on, and I feel that she's really fair to everybody in the industry. She's very careful not to wear a Te Akau hat when she's on trackside, and I think she's very professional in the way she does it.
She certainly was. She was actually a guest here before you, I've got to say.
That's right.
Listen, about this time, and because we had the fallout of the stock market, etc., the Oak Stud, you got involved there?
Yes, in 1990, I was appointed bloodstock consultant to a large international bank that had lent a lot of money to the bloodstock industry in New Zealand and Australia, and I was asked to manage their portfolio through, and that involved running Glen Oak Stud, as it was then, who was owned by Laurie Connell, and we had to go about running that in an orderly manner, paying the accounts, running, selling, and
finally getting rid of the asset themselves.
That's
ultimately.
right. And we sold that, and I had a big job in Australia, and I went to Sydney every second week for 3 years. And they had $100 million exposure to the bloodstock industry, and I had to manage them out of that, which we did successfully. One of the assets that the bank had was a 40% share in the Magic Millions company.
Is that where you met Don Hancock? Is that where, or had you already known Don Hancock before this?
No, I'd known Don for a long time.
Yeah.
And actually he was working at the Waikato Racing Club. Herbie Dyke and I got him a job there when he came back from America. And then when I went to Australia, I was looking for somebody to help me with that work. And Don is a capable guy, and he came and worked for me, and we had a great partnership together.
Gee,
and we're still good friends.
I was going to say, in terms of a business decision with Mark Wall, that was a great decision for Magic Millions, getting Don involved there.
Yes, it was. And the first thing we did, we took they had a partner that owned 60%. The bank I worked for owned 40%. We bought the other company out. So the bank then controlled the whole company, and we asked Don to do a report on this company and to see whether it was worth saving. And then when we'd done that, we appointed Don Hancock to run Magic Millions. And that year, the breeders had a breakaway movement. They had their own sale at Sanctuary Cove.
I remember that, out-of-date pies and everything else. Yep.
Yeah. So we organised that first sale, and then Don was left to be the chief executive and run the company.
Yeah. And gee, the rest is, as they say, is history now in the hands of Jerry Harvey and his wife. So things have moved there. How are you juggling all this with your own business as such? You know, again, required a lot of good people underneath you, but yourself, I mean, physically and everything else must have been very taxing on you.
Well, if you really enjoy doing something and you're passionate about it, it's not work. Like most nights, Karen and I are still in the office at 10:30, but we're doing bloodstock work. It just seems, it's fun. Yeah. We enjoy communicating with people.
Wasn't as easy back in the 90s, though, communicating as it is now with the internet the way it is. I mean, the internet may have been, God forbid, may have been just starting. We were dealing with faxes, and as you were saying, you're getting on a plane once every fortnight.
But when I came home, I had a dictaphone full of faxes, as we used to do. My secretary used to send out 50, 60 faxes a day. And now it's so much easier with emails, isn't it?
Yeah, press the button. Around this time, you started involvement with a horse called Te Akau Nick.
That's right. I bought Te Akau Nick at the Wellington Magic Millions sale, and in 1990. And
didn't pay a lot of money for him either. 50,000, I said.
40,000.
40,000 was it?
Yeah.
There you go. Good. Yeah.
I bought him off Ollie Goodwin.
Yeah.
And gave him to my great friend Colin Gillings to train, and he won his first start at Te Rapa as a 3-year-old. He won 2 Derby trials. He ran 3rd in the New Zealand Derby, and Colin recommended that we send him to Australia. Tommy Smith was a great friend of mine and has been for a long time. TJ used to come and stay at the farm every yearling sale time. And
at that stage, Gay was just starting out training.
Yeah, she was just starting. She'd only just been given a licence, and I decided to back her, and it was Gay's first Group 1 winner, and we've had a fantastic association, and we're still very good friends.
Up to the turn, Te Akau Nick and Frontier Boy together. 3 in front of the Phantom running on. Then Drum Taps over on the inside. Marrakesh and Far both making up good ground. In the straight, it's Te Akau Nick by a length. Frontier Boy second, Marrakesh to third, 3 lengths away Far. Then the Phantom Vintage Coppers running on, and then Drum Taps down to the 300. Te Akau Nick a length in front of Frontier Boy. 3 away Vintage Cop starting to storm home from Tennessee Jack. Te Akau Nick in front. Vintage Cop is storming home on the outside. Vintage Cop on the outside grabs Te Akau Nick, then Mercator, and the Cup is going back to England. And Vintage Cop has won the Melbourne Cup by 3 lengths to Te Akau Nick and Mercator. Then Great Village flashing home for 4th. Close up in the field was Tennessee Jack, Frontier Boy. Then Drum Taps Every Chance, Marrakesh.
I bet you weren't in favour of the imports after that, eh? You must have thought you were almost home, and then I suppose you saw the yellow colours.
He must have a great pain threshold, because Bob certainly gave him a bit of stick, gave him every possible chance.
Well, he wasn't going to stop, was he?
No.
No.
But that was really the first year that the European horses came, and
It was, you were saying Gay's first Group 1 winner. It was also her first run in the Melbourne Cup, that horse, wasn't it?
yes, that's right.
So great thrill, great association you had with him. About this time too, Roger James had traded for you here in New Zealand for about 5 years. Stephen Orchard moved from doing the pre-training, came over and he took over the Matamata training.
Yeah, Steve worked in the team for 5 or 6 years and did a very good job. He's a very good trainer, Steve Orchard.
You trained about that. Am I right? Savannah Success, was that with you at that time? I'm just trying to think.
No.
The filly that won.
Lady Bay, we had Pearlier
Okay.
Bay, we had horses Captain Moonlight, he won a Group 1, Crystal Palace won a
Crystal
Group 1.
Palace, that
Yeah.
was the one. It was Crystal Palace
Yeah.
that I was thinking of. Towards the middle of the 90s, your first marriage came to an end.
Yep.
Just grew apart, do you think, or just?
Well, we were fortunate. We had a terrific marriage, actually. We had 3 lovely children out of that union. And when I went to Australia, spent so much time away, I guess we just grew apart a little bit, but we're still very good friends today. And yeah, we've moved on from that.
It happens, doesn't it? I mean, towards the end of the 90s, a young fellow that came through your gate you talked about, a young guy, Mark Walker, who was worked his way up, I dare say, was foreman, I think, underneath Stephen Orchard.
Yeah, well, Mark started pre-training at Matamata, helping weigh the bulls, dock the lambs, fencing. He was happy to do whatever was going. And one day he said to me, I'm getting a little bit bored on the weekends out here. So I said, go and play a bit of golf or do something like that. So 3 months later, he came to me and we were having a beer one night and I said, how's the golf going? He said, it's going quite well. He said, I'm down to a 3 handicap.
No.
Yeah. So anything that he turned his mind to,
Yeah.
he's been a success.
Do you play golf yourself at all? Not
I
really?
used to play
Yeah?
a fair bit, but we now go racing on Saturdays, and there is a good golf course at Te Akau, a 9-hole course, and I actually had a game there about 2 weeks ago.
One thing that, well, I mean, let's talk about now your outlet. One of the things that people probably don't realise, one of your passions in life is cooking, isn't it? Hey?
Yeah, I enjoy cooking very much. I like eating it too, unfortunately.
I would say a great night for you would be having the Weber on, a nice wine, and Karen sitting in the lounge there with you.
Yep.
Is that what you call the ultimate night, almost?
Having a nice rack of lamb.
Yeah. On the Weber?
On the Weber, a nice salad, and you know, I enjoy cooking. I've got some friends that are very good cooks that teach me, have taught me well, and I enjoy it.
Because you do a fair bit of entertaining out at Te Akau, because I dare say it's a fair way to get to you in some regards. So I mean, that's what I'm going to ask. Ever thought of becoming a helicopter pilot to make your life easier?
No, I haven't, but I enjoy cooking, I enjoy entertaining people.
And they have to stay because you're so far out.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we live 3/4 of an hour from Hamilton. We're an hour and 25 minutes from Auckland. And the good thing about being in racing is that you do meet a lot of really good people, and we enjoy entertaining them in our home.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Mark took over the reins in 1997, am I right? Around then?
97.
97?
Yep.
Was 97?
Yep.
I remember you coming along to trackside, introducing me to him and sitting down, he'd taken over. And I thought, gee whiz, he's a fairly shy, didn't say a lot, sort of thing. As it turned out, that was sort of more of his personality, I suppose. He's a very dry-humoured bloke, isn't he?
Well, he's quite a relatively shy person, but a very capable, sincere person, and that carried him through. And
Big call though at the time, given you came from Roger James, Stephen Orchard to basically a no-name, you know, to go out and grab someone who was unknown to most people.
when I went and appointed Mark to the job as training for Te Akau, one leading breeder said to me, "That'll be the worst decision you've ever made." And it was the best decision I've ever made, because he set about dedicating his life to training the horses, and he made a terrific success of it. Did things like broke the all-time record of wins ever in a season from the O'Sullivan family. And we all know how good and capable and what great trainers they are. And you know, in those days they had Bridget doing the PR, they had Lance doing the riding, Paul and Dave, you know, they were the complete package.
Well, I mean, Te Akau is now to some extent, but I mean, things started very well. You did have one hiccup though in 2000, that horse, Warm Regards at Te Arawa. I mean, with regards to the jumpers flat and everything else, I mean, it's something obviously Mark must look back and just shake his head at.
And Mark was in Australia at the time and changed the date of a jumping certificate by 1 day, so that the horse was allowed to race in a jumper's flat, and he made a serious error of judgment, but actually it was the makings of him, because he has just worked so hard ever since, and I'm very proud of the mistake he made.
And I think credit to you too, because some would have said, I'm going to walk away, I'm sorry Mark, geez, I can't have this in the operation. But you said, Mark, sit to the side, the 4-month suspension, come back, you know, and we'll work through this. Big call for you too, because you took over training.
I went and lived in Matamata for 4 months.
You became the Gay Waterhouse of Te Akau.
And Paul O'Sullivan always says it wasn't that David wasn't a good trainer, it's just that Mark's better. But we were a bit stiff. We ran second in the Celt, we ran second in the Stony Bridge, we ran second in the Captain Cook Stakes in that 4-month period, and I only needed one of those to be a win. But I was lucky. I had the best track work rider in probably the world, Lance O'Sullivan, that was helping me, and he used to come to the track every morning and ride a couple for me, and he was just marvellous, and it was a fun time. But the day I was left, I got all the trainers in the hut, and I said, well, this is my last day, boys. You guys have been given life. I only got 4 months.
2000, the millennium. Let's go through what happened. You became chairman, Waikato Racing Club. You joined the New Zealand Racing Conference. You then purchased that year 1,800 acres and went from about 12 to 3,000 acres. I mean, life just keeps getting bigger for you at this stage.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I didn't set out to necessarily do that, but there was a good property that came up for sale right next door to me, and yeah, we had a crack at it.
So you now, I mean, obviously with 3,000 acres, it's not full of horses. You clearly have got a fair bit of farming action going on as well.
Yes, we run a lot of sheep and
you still got the sheep.
Yep.
Well, they're good now at $1. Yeah.
2,500 breeding ewes.
Yeah.
And we winter 1,000 cattle, 1,000 steers, and 1,000 bulls. So we have about 2,000 cattle on, and we finish about 3,500 lambs each year. And it's great because we have a fantastic team of staff who I call team members.
Yeah.
And it's a very happy organisation. We all work well together, and I'm very proud of the way that that they farm the property. Mm-hmm. They keep it in beautiful condition, no thistles, no weeds, and
you're in the office a lot. I mean, but do you go out for relief? And I can imagine it must be very proud, as you're saying, no thistles, no. Do you go for a drive as a bit of a relief to go round and just sort of a bit of an outlet from being in the office?
Oh, for sure. And this morning, for example, I sent a young colt called Rock and Pop back into work, and he was playing up. So I led them myself up to the stable and loaded them onto the float.
Yeah.
So
here's you now with the horses. I've driven round with you on the property. I mean, you do have a great, and you've set it up so you can drive around, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't really like opening gates, Steve. So I've set it up with a race so that we can drive right round the whole farm without stopping.
That is super, and it must be, it's just a wonderful part of the world. And I mean, that's it. While as isolation must be a disadvantage to some extent, it's a real advantage too, isn't it?
It works really well for us, and we enjoy having owners to come out and see their horses.
And it's a different part of the world for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great place to sell horses, and people that come out enjoy looking at the yearlings after the sale. It just works well.
Yeah. Hey, listen, a little after the year millennium, that's been a great time of the year for you. 2001 or so, you met our girl, Karen Fenton Ellis. Well, she wasn't Karen Fenton Ellis then, she was Karen Fenton. Hey?
Yes, that's right. I was in the stand at Trentham with Colin Gillings and Peter Grieve, and we were having a bet. Colin went over to have a bet, and while Peter and I were having a beer, and I saw him talking to Karen, and I said, Colin, go and bring Karen over and introduce us, Peter and I. So she came over, and we had a drink, and we got on really well. And the next week I was back down in Trentham, and I said, I'm bringing 2 horses down that I think can win. Come to the races and see them race. And there was King's Chapel, he won the Telegraph, and Capstan won the Group 2. So we had a big day, and she was there, and we just over the next 3 years became good friends.
Yeah. And you shared a similar passion too, didn't you, for horses, obviously?
Exactly, yeah, we did.
And a great blend, as you say, a great asset to the business. Not that obviously that was not the motivation for getting from part of the TRL team, but a wonderful asset to you.
Oh, absolutely, and you know, I couldn't do what I do without her support, and it's just marvellous the way that she handles and communicates with the owners, and it just works really well, and
Great
couldn't be a
synergy.
happier unit.
2002, you did something at Te Rapa at Waikato Racing Club as chairman. You introduced a marketing thing with regards to a Zabeel nomination.
Yeah, Sir Patrick gave the club a free service to Zabeel for 3 years in a row, and it was a huge promotion. Helped because one of the days, I think 2 of the days, we had Sunline racing on the day, and we had huge crowds, and turnovers were, you know, really impressive, because to get into the draw for a free service to Zabeel,
You had to take a $20 ticket,
you had
didn't
to take a minimum of a $20 ticket, and it worked really well. It was great promotion.
Because marketing is something you are into, isn't it? I mean, it's one of your little things that you enjoy, obviously working towards getting something successful, coming up with an idea and making it work. Because another one you did, you got a mate of yours who's married to a trainer of yours, Gay Waterhouse, the man Robbie Waterhouse. I don't know how you got dispensation for this. People probably can't remember it.
Well, Peter Vella and I actually did it together. It was Peter's idea.
Yeah.
And we approached the government, and they gave us permission to do something that hadn't been done for 80 years in New Zealand. We were allowed to have a real bookmaker on course taking bets on New Zealand racing, and we were fortunate that Peter was on the TAB board, and he convinced the TAB to allowing it as an experiment. It worked very well. We had the turnover was up on the day, not just with Robbie, but our tote was up. It was a very successful promotion. The thing I enjoyed about it most was it was the front page story on the New Zealand Herald, and it was actually the lead editorial story that day of the Herald.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite true too. I don't think it was the most wonderful thing about that day. The most wonderful thing about that day, the only race he lost on, people, was distinctly secret. And who wiped him out? It was you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was. I told Mark that we had him coming in February, and he set distinctly secret to win that race. And it was the only race on the day that he lost on.
Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks, David. Yeah. But you are right. It was a good news story. We did see bookmakers on course. We haven't seen them of late. We've had the TAB bookmakers on course. I think they add a certain angle, and it gives you something else as a punter to do on course. Do you personally think that it's an opportunity that maybe we get back, even if the TAB bookmakers, to create some noise, atmosphere, etc.?
It's a difficult one. Racing administration is not as easy as you think. And a lot of people look from the outside and say, well, this is what we should be doing, this is the direction we should be going. But I've been involved, and I see a lot of people that try very hard, that get criticised for everything that they do. I don't know, our TAB are currently returning more in dividends to NZTR in percentage terms than any TAB in the world. Now you start giving them competition with bookmakers.
No, but even if they're own bookmakers, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we used to have them on course, and I often wondered, you know, because I think it creates an atmosphere, gives people something else to do on a racetrack. And let's talk about Distinctly Secret though, because he's the horse that won this day, but particularly proud because you bred him as well.
Yes, I did breed Distinctly Secret, and he gave us a huge amount of satisfaction and thrill. He raced in 4 consecutive kilts, had 2 seconds, a win and a 5th, ran in 3 Caulfield Cups. It's just hard to get horses like Distinctly Secret. He won 2 Awapuni Gold Cups.
This is the colt here, and those familiar tangerine. Where do these colours come from too?
I registered them in 1978.
Where do they come from? Where in the back, the recesses of the mind, did you come up with these colours, the colours and the
I just wanted something bright that everybody could see, and I never thought they'd win the races that they have. But here's Distinctly Secret, ridden by our very good friend Opie Bosson, who started his apprenticeship, came to work at Te Akau when he was 14, became the champion apprentice, and he got a big thrill out of winning that race for us.
I can imagine too. And Lance O'Sullivan clearly states, and a lot of pundits think too, he's probably one of the best riders in New Zealand. If he could only keep his weight to a manageable level, he is the best in the business.
He's a world-class jockey, that is for sure.
In terms of your role with the NZTR, I mean, how did you do it through this period of time? Chairman of the Waikato Racing Club, NZTR, NZ Racing, I mean, balls in the air stuff.
Yeah, I had a lot on, but I think if you're really interested in and have a passion for something, it doesn't become a job, it doesn't become work. And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with the people. When I was on the board of the New Zealand Racing Conference, there were some terrific people to work with. They were people that were successful in their own right, and it was just fun. It didn't seem like work. And the same at the Waikato Racing Club. We had a terrific team of people that were involved, and I really enjoyed it, got a lot out of it, and hope that I put a little bit back in.
And David, 2004 was a hell of a year for you. At King's Chapel Racing, you won with Darcy Brahma. Somebody tried to burn your house down and you got engaged to Karen Fenton Ellis. One heck of a year. I know which order you'd like to put them in.
Yeah, well, I always, every year, Steve, try and go to the farms and inspect horses that actually produce the winners. And I have always felt that Peter and Philip Vella have the best boutique stud in the world. And I went and saw all their foals in March before they were weaned, and I'm very fortunate that I am able to visualise what a foal will finish up looking like as a 2-year-old, as a yearling, as a mature horse. Because of course at the day you buy these horses, it doesn't actually matter what they look like. What does matter, and what is very important, is what they look like when you leg the jockey up for the first time. And it's important to be able to visualise how those horses are going to develop. And not many people in the world have that ability to do that.
Well, and your record speaks for itself, David, that you clearly have and a wonderful run. People say, oh, he's got a heap of money to spend, he buys, you know, but your success rate doesn't always come with the highest priced horses you've bought either, does it?
Well, no, I bought King's Chapel for 35,000 and Darcy Brahma for 1.1 million.
Yeah.
But I always say that in buying horses, there's three parts to the equation, and unless you do all three properly, you're not going to be successful. The first part is pedigree analysis. You've got to be able to look at each mating and decide whether that will be a success. Will that leave a good a top horse? The second part is looking at the individual, inspecting the athlete, and inspecting the horse on type. And the third part is selling and paying for the horse.
Yeah.
And Te Akau have a world-class record in that field that I'm unbelievably proud of.
And so you should. I mean, as you say, you are the only one, and I didn't know this, people, until doing a bit of research on Dave. 1981 you started. You are the only person in New Zealand, I dare say, potentially, no, maybe not in the world, that's probably going a bit too far, but certainly in Australasia, that has successfully bought at one sale for 30 years.
Yeah.
And ongoing too, not
and
stopping
I'm very
yet.
proud of it because I regard New Zealand Bloodstock as the best bloodstock company in the world and by quite a margin. And it's great to be able to support such a very successful company. And I was at the Ready to Run sale just 2 weeks ago,
I know. Yeah.
and I saw the effort that that team had gone into to getting a world-class cross-section of buyers. And that was an unbelievably successful sale.
And
So hats off to them.
The flow-on effect is going to be for the 2012 yearling sales as well. Let's go back to Darcy Brahma. Do you rate him as potentially the best horse you've bought?
Well, it's a good question. I rate Burgundy probably as good a horse as I've bought.
Yeah.
I think that he has untapped potential. Darcy, he was champion 2-year-old, champion 3-year-old, and champion 4-year-old. It's hard to buy a horse. In fact, there's never been a sales-topping colt that's done that.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, people are going to see, we're seeing the sales here now, and people watch, and I've got to give credit to Trackside here too. The coverage of the sales is just simply outstanding, and that's aided by Karen too with the comments, etc. But they get round, they get the buyers, they get you with that wink. Hey, this has become your hallmark, this wink. Hey?
well, it seems to, doesn't it?
I read somewhere where it allows you to keep one eye watching on the opposition and one eye so they can't see you. You always use your left eye, don't you?
Well, it seems to have worked well, and why break a winning formula?
You always sit the same place? Is that superstition, or you just that's where you like to be?
It's where I can see the opposition, and it's where I can have contact with the auctioneers, and we've bought so many good Group 1 horses there that why change a winning formula? Mark and I like it there. All our owners know, they come and talk to us, and they know where to find us. And yeah, it just works well.
Well, we both go to another sale, which is the Magic Millions. You've also had success there. You bought a very smart filly. In fact, you bought a colt called Talatau, but one of the best fillies, I dare say, you've raced, and Princess Cope came from Magic Millions.
Well, actually, the first good horse I bought there was a mare called Integrate.
All right.
And I paid $11,000 for her. I bought her home, and I couldn't sell her. Everybody thought that because she was so cheap,
She was no good.
She was no good. And then I got a good friend of mine in Tauranga, Des Ferro, and we raced her together. She won $700,000 in prize money, and I went back and bought Princess Cope.
Significantly more than 11,000, I will add.
260,000.
Yeah.
And what I did with Princess Cope, Steve, I went and offered half to Ray Copeland. After I bought her, Ray took that half, and then I went to Gerald and Rex Phil and said, would you like to take half of this?
Oh, this is great. This is publicly, they're going to be found out that they turned it down.
And they said they'd just bought a few mares, which was their priority, which they'd done, and they turned Princess Cope down. And then John Bromley, I approached him, and he said that his pedigree man had recommended Princess Cope, so he came and took half of Princess Cope, and well, she still holds the all-time stake record in New Zealand.
With all the success, Was the dissolution of the ownership, the way it all broke down, is that one of the saddest things for you that's happened in racing? Disappointing things in racing?
Well, all I'll say on that is that Ray Copeland is one of the greatest blokes that you'll ever meet in your life, and that he was a great bloke to train for. And I think that for her to have to go to Australia to be sold was one of the most stupid decisions I've ever heard, because the two people that were bidding on her would both have been at Karaka. They would have bought for the same money, would have been the same result. So I just thought that was stupid, and leave it at that.
Okay, so it's what you've not said is probably it says volumes, it shouts out, doesn't it? She did make a lot of money though. I mean, she won 4 million on the track and she made 3 million. Did she?
3 million Australian,
Yeah.
4 million New Zealand at the time.
Yep.
It was a huge result for the
You were
owners.
underbidder.
Yes, I was.
Nervous bidding at that sort of money? Well, you had Ray standing next to you, didn't you?
I'm lucky I don't get nervous at auctions.
I was going to ask you that. Don't you get nervous?
No, I don't.
Big ones walking in?
The only time I've been nervous at an auction was when Burgundy came in the ring, because I wanted that horse so badly, and I wasn't sure. I saw Nathan Tinkler's man, I knew Coolmore were there was about 5 different people that I knew were interested, and I had no plan B. If I didn't get Burgundy that day, there was no horses. It was late in the sale, there were no other horses left. So I was just so relieved to have bought him. But that's the only time that I've gone and had a brandy after a sale.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That relieved to have got it.
Yeah.
Here it is here. Actually, we should go back and watch it. I think I sold it, did I? Did I sell it? I'm just trying to think.
You've sold me some pretty good
Actually, I
horses.
sold you Saparavi, which wasn't too good for you, was he? Was he another disappointing for you? I mean,
No, he was actually a very good racehorse.
Yeah.
And he was stakes placed at his 3rd start, and he got very badly injured. Actually, we were very lucky to save him.
Okay.
He had to be in a box for 3 months, couldn't leave the box. And he's one of 2 stallions that we stand at Willow Glen Stud, and we've got progeny of Saparavi.
They look all right too.
And they look terrific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a bit like him.
Yeah.
I mean, you're becoming a bit of a buyer of sires, haven't you? I mean,
Well,
a
I
bit
bought them
like you are the Rick or Lacey of the the buying ring almost.
Well, I bought them at different levels. I bought King's Chapel for 35,000 and Minstrel Court for 100,000, and of course Darcy Brahma for 1.1 million.
There you are. There's with the family. There's now talking. You've adopted Karen's daughters, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Karen's got 2 daughters, Lydia and Julia, and I'm very, very proud of both of them, and they're now my children. I've formally adopted them, and it's great to have them in the team with my 3 children. They're all very happy. They get on well together, so that's terrific.